Hey guys, Nitro here. I figured since I was getting quite a few questions on the process of how I delidded my 7700K, I figured I'd kind of do a video detailing the whole process of of how I delid it and the choices I make and the tips and strategies that I use. So without further ado, let's get started. So here we have today's test subject. Here is my test subject, a Core i5 6600K. If you follow me on HardwareBot, you'll know the CPU here. So, as you can see, we have our delidding tool here. This is the Rocket 88. So, what you need to do is you need to just open this, just remove these screws. So as you remove the screws, just doesn't really matter what order you remove them in, it's just that you need to remove them. Just keep them to one side. Go to the top and you'll see the bottom, there's a little triangle here on this side. I'll try and zoom in the camera a little bit, since I think it needs to be zoomed in anyways. I didn't really think this through that well, no, did I? No. That's what I wanted, okay. Just close that now that I have this open. Now that I have this open, what I can do, I can just go and it's going to be the highest that I can zoom in. So, alright, so as you can see, I'll just hold it closer to the camera. As you can see, there is a little triangle right there. So what you do is you take your CPU, you line the triangle on the CPU with the triangle in the base, drop it in, make sure this is all the way back. Probably turning it the wrong way, and I am. So make sure that's all the way back. And then you place it back down on the top of the delid tool. Screw the screws back in. So move that off to one side so I have a little bit more room to work. Alright, so now once all the screws are tightened down, what you do is you take the included Allen key and you place it in the socket and then just turn, keep turning, and then when you hear a snap, that was just the fact that I dropped it. There you go. When you hear that, and you actually kind of feel it too, just start loosening it back up. That was actually very powerful. And I actually heard it a lot better than the time he was the 7700K. So then you just unscrew these screws again. And then once you remove it, you'll see that the IHS has shifted a little bit. And then you just wiggle it right off. And then as you can see, it's actually quite heavier than I initially anticipated. But as you can see, There's the IHS, there's the CPU itself. So now what you do is you can just put it down on one side of that index card right there. So in this bag I have the thermal crystal conductant on it, thermal interface material, thermal compound, whatever you want to call it. And as you can see, it comes with a little alcohol wipe. Well, it comes with two, but I only have one because I used the other one already. And I mean, even if I need more, I have this little bottle of 7% here. You can see, here it is. Here's what it looks like. So you just take this, clean out the thermal paste off the CPU. Pick it up if you need to, just to kind of make it easier. Don't drop it, of course. So that just gets all of that off right away. And even just some on the sides here. So we'll let that dry for a minute, and then we'll focus our attention onto the IHS side. There's quite a bit more thermal compound on it, but then again it's quite easy to remove still. What's even better is that it still leaves an outline on the IHS for the for when you want to apply the stuff later. Thermal liquid metal, I should say. Now I just need to find it, but I don't know where it is. Oh, actually, I think the first thing I ought to do is scrape off the silicone glue. So we will be doing that with, well, if you have a cuticle tool or something, use that. But I just have this used Amazon gift card, so I figured I may as well just use it instead, because it should work just as well. In theory, it should work just as well. In theory, but it actually doesn't really work that well. This really does not work at all. But this actually does work. Using the thumbnail. Do I have anything better to do this with? So what we're doing now is we're just scraping off the original silicone glue, or the silicone adhesive that Intel uses to keep the IHS into place. Not going to be as good of a job as I was able to do before, and actually should probably put alcohol wipe and clean up this top of the IHS, considering it's like all old from my like H110i GTX that I need to get off. While I'm thinking about it, that's all over my fingers, let's do that. There you go, now you can see the badge number. Now you can see the badge number, L520B994. So we're just going to keep on scraping this off. This is not going to be nearly as clean of a job. Actually, do I still have the cuticle tool? I still have it. Okay. Just gonna undo it off camera. We do still have the cuticle tool. I thought we didn't. So this is gonna be a lot easier to kind of clean it off than just using your thumbnail. I'll probably just end up like speeding this part up in the actual video. Because I don't think anybody wants to see me just scraping something on an IHS for 20 minutes. I mean, it's actually not that bad, so we'll just kind of leave it as is for now. And then we'll move on to the CPU itself. This is actually quite a bit, not sure if easier is the term I used to describe it, but... I guess maybe it is because it's all just a smooth surface. And you notice that I'm just doing this whole process while it's still inside of the delid tool. That way it just like doesn't slip out or anything. Or it's like you can't even see it because I'm holding my hands so close together. And the zoom probably doesn't work all that well, but it's all that I have with the little C920 webcam that I have. So it's gonna have to work. Alright, so that's probably as clean as I'm going to be able to get it here. So, next step is, I don't know where I put it, there it is. So, is the actual application of the liquid metal itself. And people are saying, oh, how is this like the most difficult part? But, well, it is actually because you need to get it kind of started, and then you need to get it in the right place. So, as we said earlier, the thermal compound we'll be using is thermal grizzly conductanate. It's a liquid metal paste. It has conductivity of 73 watts per meter Kelvin, or per meter Kelvin, I believe. And it's quite actually relatively expensive compared to thermal paste. For comparison, I have some Arctic Silver 5. This is 3.5 grams. 3.5 grams of it. And I paid, I think, less than $6. This is a gram of Thermal Grizzly Conductonaut, and I paid, I think, 15. So it is 3 times as expensive for 3 times as less for a third of the capacity. So you don't want to waste this stuff. So anyways, so here you have your CPU and an index card, but we're going to leave that for a moment, because what I do first is I usually mask off the CPU. So what I do is I take some tape. It's double-sided, but it's all I have, plus it works, it does the job. And then you essentially just kind of just tape off everything, all the PCB, because that's what you want to cover. So it's like if you're doing painting, you're going to mask off the everything you don't want to get covered in paint, right? Same logic applies to this. And you notice I'm going to take part of the cuticle tool and kind of rub down on where I want it to make a nice kind of firm seal up against the die. Okay. And then I'll just apply one last piece of tape. I want to get that a little closer actually, so I can apply it just a fit. Just do it. It's a little bit farther away than I would ideally like. That is much better. So as you can see, we now kind of have a masked off substrate PCB. And then you're going to want to do the same process on the IHS. So as you can see, there is a faint, well, you probably can't see it, but there's a faint little outline of where the thermal paste used to be. So we're going to use that as a guide to place the tape. Just so I can see it when my hands are in this position. Just going to eyeball it. This isn't quite as important, but we're going to be covering it anyways. Yes, it's probably not the best idea to use double-sided tape for a project like this, but it's all I have available. I'd recommend actually using single-sided Scotch tape, or hell, even painter's tape, duct tape, whatever you have. It does the job well. Unlike this is really just a production, but it is getting the job done. You'll notice this is going to be quite a bit smaller, and that's because I don't know how to do things right, so can't quite position things how I want them to, so deal with it. Alright, so now that we have everything masked off, we can finally get to applying liquid metal. So what I usually do is you take, where's the applicator I'm going to use, where's the metal, here it is. So we're just going to be using this metal tipped, this tiny little metal tipped applicator. So we unscrew the cap, screw the cap, screw on the applicator, and then how I like to do it is take an index card or something of that equivalent like type thing, and then you just gently press. That's way too much. So what we can do, place back like in the bead, and then just like suck it all up. and then try it again. And then that's probably about how much we would want to use. So you take that and you place it on the die, and then you take your little Q-tip or spreader. This is the one they included in the kit. You can use whichever one you have, and then you gently spread it onto the die. And you want to get it like a thin, nice thin film of liquid metal, not too much. That is the key here. If you use too much, it will actually hurt your thermal performance. And as you can see, that actually looks pretty well done. Maybe a bit more in that corner, but that's why we use the tape, so that you have a little bit more space to work with. So the die is done, and then we will now move on to the IHS, which is a very similar process. If I can pick the thing up off of the table, is where, well, with this one you can actually kind of do it directly onto the thing. Directly do it onto the die. Cap back on. You retake your spreader. Better tool. I'm just going to work it onto the IHS. I found that the IHS is a little harder to spread on than the die for whatever reason. Just give it a little bit of time, because you can effectively spread it if you have patience. Okay. Now that that's all nice and spread out, we can actually begin to unmask the CPUs or remove the masking material. So on the CPU, we're just going to pull one corner like so, and as you can see, beautifully done liquid metal CPU die. Very well done. So now we're going to get to the part of resealing. So yeah, it's not the best application on the IHS. Granted, it's not even the best masking of the IHS, but let's bring that a little closer. So as you can see, that's a nice kind of smooth coating of thermal liquid metal. Alright, so moving on to one of the kind of final steps is the resealing process. So you're going to want some sealant. In my case, I'm using some Permatex Ultra Black gasket maker. This cost me about $7. I should have bought the smaller container, which is a little bit more, but because I'm never going to use all this. Right, so we're going to take our other index card. Take this other index card here. We're going to move that over. So we're going to unscrew our tube. We'll squirt out just a little tiny bit. That should be enough. Onto the index card. And then how I do it, I take a Q-tip, cotton swab, whatever you call it. We're going to want this. So I take it, I dip it in the sealant, and I apply a nice thin layer on top, around the edges of the IHS. And I do really emphasize thin. And you're going to want to give it a gap to work with as well. I'm just going to double check on one side, just to see what side. Okay, so we'll do it on that edge there, so I may as well just do it now while I'm thinking about it. Just give it a gap, similar to the one that Intel has with their stock, so we're just going to give it a gap in that position there. The cotton swab is probably not the best applicator for this material, but it will work eventually. Okay, so it's definitely kind of a dirty application. It is very messy to apply this stuff with a cotton swab, but it works. And then you can always just take the other side of the cotton swab and clear it away from areas where you don't want it to touch. I usually do, like I run it along the interior edge, and then that's good. And another thing I like to do is, you see, let's pull this up toward the camera, there are 4 little gold contacts in that corner of the CPU die, and if liquid metal gets on those, it's pretty much game over. So what I like to do is I like to take some of the sealant and put some on top of those contacts, a little bit more, in order to essentially insulate them from the liquid metal. And it's still not quite going where I want it to go. I'm like dabbing it right where I want it. Alright, that'll have to work. Alright, so using this yellow piece here, this is the relid IHS repositioning tool. I'm going to just it should just, why is this not working? There we go. Snaps into place around the side of the delid tool. You just take your IHS, the little bit of liquid metal, and your sealant, and you just put it in place. Then what you do is you take this tool, which would usually have this little screw, nut, whatever, not attached, and then you just take it, and then 2 of these screws, and you just kind of position it over the holes here, and then just, because there are 2 little screw holes in the tool, and then just screw those in and tighten those up just to get it aligned properly. Now that it's aligned properly, you tighten the big screw. And then once you start to meet resistance, half a turn, and then you're good. So what I usually do, I like to leave it overnight, but since it is like 2 in the afternoon, I'll generally leave it at least 8 hours, if not 12, if I have the opportunity. So we're just going to leave it for 8, and then we'll come back later tonight and see how we did. But yeah, that is pretty much the whole process. It takes less than half an hour. It's pretty easy if you have the right tools and the right know-how, and I hope this video kind of provided some of that know-how. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to either put them in the comments, DM me on Reddit, I'll leave a link for that in the description, or you could ask some of the wonderfully fine folks over on the overclocking subreddit, who probably know quite a bit more than me, so I'll leave that link in the description as well. So, alright, I hope you enjoyed the video, I hope you learned something from it, and sorry for the poor camera work. I don't really have many options in that regard, so I just have to play the hand I'm dealt, and yeah, have a good one.